If you could see what I'm doing behind this pillow. I'm just kidding.
Oh, the things that pillow has seen. All right.
Can you see that? Can you
'Cause
see it?
I'm doing it as hard as I can. What?
Your direction. That's the best pet you can have.
A bird. Hello and welcome to Hardly Working Through It, the show after the show where we dig deeper into life, love, and labor. I'm SP.
And I'm Kelly. And today we're asking the question, how do you deal with burnout?
How do you deal with burnout?
I have no idea.
Kelly, have you ever been burnt out?
Oh, 100%.
I really thought you were going to be like once.
No.
Are you more burned out now?
No. I love my life.
Your life is pretty great.
Yeah.
I learned that when we're all sitting at a table and everyone, all three out of the four of us were like, things are hard. And Kelly's like, I love it. It's
feel
all
great.
puppy dogs and rainbows over here.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, we're digging into a sensitive and interesting topic, something that I think that so many people can pull stuff from. And we'd love to hear your experiences and your techniques to get through it and go through it. But as always, in Hardly Working Through It, we like to answer just a couple questions for you to get to know us a little bit better about the two of us in a little bit of not would you rather, but who is more likely, starting with this one today. Who is more likely to trip and fall in public?
Me.
That's 100% true. There was a time we were filming something in London. And that actually sounds like we were doing something
We
cool.
were on our honeymoon,
We were
yeah.
in London and we were filming a video as we walked.
Yeah.
And Kelly tripped in the video and we kept that
You
stuff
left it in.
because it was great. I think people like to see the reality of
I have
life.
a different perspective on it now. At the time, I wasn't as confident in myself. Now I'm like, yeah, keep it in.
Oh, I love it.
who
But
I
I
am.
do agree. You are probably the one who's going to trip in public.
100%.
Second question, the last one before we get in the topic, because I don't want the people who are like, I hate when I start a podcast and they talk about other stuff. So this is for you.
You know who you are. I'm just kidding. I don't know.
Next one, who's more likely? I love this because I don't know the answer. Who is more likely to give their kid a pretty terrible name? We have a kid, but you were not a part of naming that kid. I shunned you. I said, not from you. I didn't know you. Didn't exist. Not in my life.
I wouldn't have had to say.
Do you think, let me just throw this out here. What were the few names that you're like, I'd name a kid this?
Okay. Here's what I need to preface this.
Here we go.
When I was younger, I had a name that I really wanted to name. I had two names that I really wanted to name a kid. They're all girl names too. There's no boy in my future.
Is
If
it
I have a kid, I should do it.
Amora? It's like an A name.
No, that is a newer name. But there are two names, one of which I'm like, I would never call my kid that now.
Wait, so you thought you would, and now you're like, that's so stupid.
Yeah, so when I was younger, like end of elementary, beginning of middle school, I really loved the name Elizabeth. I would never name my kid Elizabeth now. Never,
Really?
ever. No.
Well, it's not a name that is.
Yeah.
Kids aren't named Elizabeth.
Yeah, the next name would
There were so many growing up, though.
For sure.
Liz's and Elizabeth's.
Yeah,
Or there was Libby. Did you have any Libbies in your life?
No.
I think it was a Midwest thing.
Libby.
Libby for Elizabeth. I was
weird.
like, I don't know what's going on there. But what were you going to say?
The other name was Cassidy, but with a K, which
Oh.
was supposed to be my name. Cassidy with a K.
I
name
went
with Kelly
to homecoming with a Cassidy.
with a K.
No, I think a C.
Yeah.
She's
But that was what my parents were going to
very
name me.
kind.
It was between
No notes.
Cassidy and Kelly. My dad didn't want me to be able to have a nickname, so he didn't want me to be a Cassie.
What? That's so rude.
He didn't want anyone to be like be made fun of or anything like that.
So he named you Kelly Belly?
Well, I don't think he thought through Kelly Belly, to be
You
completely
got to
honest.
think about what is a third
And
grader
it's
going to
very
say.
Irish. Yeah, for sure. I mean, with a last name like Sweeney Weenie. Come on, like
Oh, yeah, it's already built in.
it's already built in. So don't be a weenie, vote for Sweeney. Am I right?
What would be bad? Cassidy Wassidy
Cass rhymes with ass. Can I say that on this podcast? I have no idea,
on this podcast?
but I just did. But yeah, so I think it was
Look,
something
hardly
like that.
working through it's going to be a little bit more explicit, but not terrible.
But not terrible. So there's that. But I really like the name Aria, which I know became very popular because of Pretty Little Liars. But this is what I was
Really?
gonna,
I think Vegas, and I'm like,
okay,
ugh.
here's what I'm going to say, because we're spending a lot of time on this question. I know it. I think that any name that I come up with that is a little bit different and not a like normal name, you would think is weird or bad. Like, I think it would
okay.
be, so like, I don't know that my names are actually worse or bad. I just think that you in your mind have like a pretty, like set rule of like what a name should be, even if you don't know it. I think you do. We've never actually talked about kids' names, but I know that if I like any name, I would want it to be something unique and different.
Yeah.
And I think you'd be like, why? That's weird. Like, our daughter's name is Brooklyn and her middle name is Ray. And I don't like that her middle name is Ray because I wouldn't have named it named her Ray.
I love the
Ray,
voice you put on for me.
I know it doesn't
I
match
don't
you
know
at all.
who this is.
It doesn't match you at all, but it's not mine. So, but yeah.
Look, first
And
of
I
all,
love Brooklyn's name now.
that's it.
Brooklyn
That's
Ray.
the whole thought.
I love her name, but like I think if I tried to pitch something,
Pitch me on something.
you don't like the name Aria. There are other
Oh.
names. I just don't know. I can't think of any of them right now
Look,
because I haven't really thought about it.
Brooklyn was
because-
either going to be Brooklyn or Skylar. And
Yeah, I don't like Skylar.
both of those names are like super duper common at this point for her age group.
For sure.
You can't see it when you're doing it, when you're naming a
Well,
kid.
because you think that it's different.
So clever.
But then
Yeah.
everybody else is doing
It's
it
true.
too.
Here is the problem with being married to me. Many problems. This is just one of them. It's
He
kind of
said
like
it, not
being
me.
it's kind of like being married to like a grammar school teacher, like a kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
Because any name you put out there, since I used to work with kids forever,
Oh yeah.
it's gonna be like, oh no, can't name him Steven because this one kid ate glue every day and then sneezed it on my blouse.
yeah.
Whatever it is. You're never gonna be able
Yeah.
to pick something
But-
that's perfect.
I guess my question would be, if we had our own kid, would it have to be named after another city, state, country?
Like Dallas. I like Dallas. For a girl, not for a boy.
I know a Dallas.
But it's a boy.
I know.
I like it doesn't matter. This podcast isn't about
Isn't
what
about that.
names
But,
I like.
the
I think
answer
I would
is-
pick a stupider name. Truly.
Honestly, I love you so much. I do think that's true. But
I
I
wanted
think
Brooklyn's middle name to be Danger.
no, you didn't.
I truly, yeah.
Brooklyn Danger McGillicuddy.
Yeah, because
Oh,
Danger
God.
is her middle name. That's a
It's
long
not
way to go
cliche
for
at
a bit.
all.
Have you met a Danger?
No.
No, it's not cliche. It's genius.
All right. On to the topic at hand.
How do you deal with burnout? Ignore it and talk about kids' names. That's
Oh
how
my
we do
gosh.
it.
Have you ever dealt with burnout?
Boy, oh boy. So burnout is Burnout is a topic that I think has been discussed in many areas and professions now.
Oh, yeah.
Back when I was working in ministry, it really wasn't talked about. That was the first time I had heard about it. And I think you can talk to anybody who's done ministry or pastoral ministry or otherwise, and they will understand that feeling of burnout, because there's something that happens, particularly when your job is also tied to your spiritual identity, which is also tied to your eternal life in your afterlife, which is also tied to the salvation and potential burning in flames of other people. There's no good reason to take time to take care of yourself when you're in ministry.
Yeah.
And when I say good reason, I mean a reason that makes sense in light of all the other things I just listed.
Yes.
So yes, I've absolutely dealt with burnout in ministry, and I've dealt with burnout. I would say, would you call my last kind of 18 months like a bit of a burnout for me?
Yes, but it's interesting. Yes. Sorry. I've been trying to boil down the idea of burnout in my head, of my experience. And I realized as you asked me that question right now, I was like, what I boiled it down to doesn't match like why
What I just described.
why you have been burnt out in the last 18 months.
Sure.
But
Although,
I think there's different reasons why people experience burnout.
yeah, and I think that'd be good to jump into, because that's what I was going to say is like people get burnt out from being overworked. They get burnt out because they have too much responsibility, too many people depending on them. People get burnt out because they feel like they're not being compensated fairly for the amount of work that they're doing. People get burnt out because their emotional threshold or margin is lower than normal. Maybe they just had a relationship end, a parent die, a pet die. Like there's so many reasons why your tank can be depleted, and that's definitely something I'm going to talk about later, is filling up your tank and depletion, all that type of stuff. But there's so many things that lead to burnout, and there's different types of burnout. I think you and I think a lot in terms of work burnout, but there is emotional burnout. There's
sure.
spiritual burnout.
For
There's
sure.
relational burnout.
Yes.
So what burnout are you thinking?
Look, again, I've been trying to boil this down in my head because obviously I worked in the same industry for 10 years. And I would say for the last year and a half of what I was doing, I think I lived in a constant state of burnout. And went to work every day with a smile on my face and came home every day and just about cried with you.
Would you like me to ask questions as they come up or later?
Yeah, that's fine.
Do you feel like that was going on pre-COVID as well?
No, I think something happened in COVID that really messed with everyone's brain a little bit. And I think we've talked about this before, but I did work in the restaurant industry. And so we were considered essential workers, which is so dumb, but on the front line. I, to this day, knock on wood, have not had COVID. I was never out of the restaurant. I was always always the manager that was left behind because everyone was either out because they had COVID or they came in contact with someone who had COVID and they had to be out due to the health department, all that stuff. But I was never. And so I think pieces of that really like added or led to that burnout and also the way people changed, not just people that I worked with, but the way that the world changed. People became harsher, more mean, very
Absolutely.
political. Everything was a political reason of why we weren't serving them. And I was like, I'm just doing my best to be here as I am terrified every day that I'm going to get COVID and give it to my parents or my kid. Like, so stop yelling at me because you think that I'm a Trump supporter or a Biden supporter. Like, we're not even talking about that. We're talking about food.
Sir, I'm trying to make you a sandwich.
Yeah. So like, stop yelling at me. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. For the type of burnout. Oh, was it pre-COVID or not?
No, but no, I really think it happened because of COVID and then after COVID. I think there were pieces that happened pre-COVID for sure, that if I look back now, I can be like, yeah, I see that was kind of where the crack started to happen.
Yeah.
But I wonder if we wouldn't have gone through COVID, would there have been a change in those things because it looks different? Because I think the crack started to kind of happen. And then instead of being able to mend them back up, it was just kind of people kept hitting it with a hammer all throughout COVID and it just kept fracturing.
Yeah.
Until I was done.
You feel like you've recovered from that?
I do. I think there are pieces, I mean, my burnout story is very specific and I understand that, but I think there are pieces of my story that burnout that I'll never be able to really completely heal. Cause I think pieces of healing come from, I think a lot of it comes from you. I think some of it comes from being heard by the people that hurt you. And I don't think I'll ever talk to them about this.
Sure.
So.
Well, we talked about that last week with like, I guess we were talking about forgiveness or ends of relationships. And it's like, sometimes it's about forgiving people for your sake. And you don't even have to do that to that person. Because sometimes they don't even realize it.
Yeah. But all that to say, I was trying to boil down this idea of burnout. And I think what I came to, which it's much more complicated than this. And I totally understand. But I from my experience, I feel like burnout happens when passion meets like a lack of encouragement or criticism, like whatever one that is, because
too much criticism.
Yeah. Because I think that I was very passionate about my job. And I think that's why I burned out faster.
Sure.
So I was so passionate about it, but I wasn't being encouraged in my ideas or being allowed to do what I wanted to do, or like I wasn't being seen in the way that I needed to be seen and encouraged, whether that be financially for me or emotionally or with time off or whatever that looked like, you know?
Yeah.
And it really changed the way that I led my team because I had awareness of the reasons why I was burnt out and didn't want them to be burnt out for the same reasons.
Yeah. And if I recall, you kind of kept a lot of that from your team.
I did.
Your own personal burnout and your frustrations and fatigues with different stuff.
Yeah.
Which I think is totally appropriate.
I think it's the appropriate thing to do is when you're leading and representing a company, like it's not your job to put it on your people that you're leading. Yeah. To be like, here's all the reasons why you should hate this, but I'm going to like be here. Like my job is to ultimately make money for the company. But I also was very passionate about making sure that everyone on my team felt supported and cared for and valued and heard.
Yeah.
And that they got what they needed, which wasn't always more hours. Sometimes it was like, I need time off because I have finals. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. Do you feel like, since you were leading people and had them underneath you, did that make the burnout easier or harder knowing that you were still pouring into people or maybe giving them some freedoms that you wish you had or anything like that?
I don't think that anything makes burnout better because I think when you're burnt out, you're just burnt out and tired. I think I had to find a new reason for why I was doing what I was doing and try to find a new passion because it was the job that I was in and I was kind of stuck with it at the time and didn't really have a different option. It took me a year and a half to leave.
Oh yeah.
After I was like, I'm ready to leave.
If you boil it down just to that timeline, I mean, you're probably ready for just a personal and professional transition for a long time.
Yeah. But I felt burnout that entire time. I felt like I was burnt out that entire time, obviously. And I think that even if you're burnt out, you can have glimpses of being like, oh yeah, I'm like reinvigorated. Do you know what I mean?
But that's like being in a toxic marriage or relationship.
Oh,
where you're like, oh, I can't be here anymore. And then you're like, oh, they did something really sweet.
Yeah.
I'm back in.
Oh yeah, exactly. And you said it a couple weeks ago, manipulation can look a lot like love. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Something like that.
And I think it's the same anywhere, whether it's in a work or whatever. And this particular job that I had, like the whole thing was like, we're a family.
A lot of companies are like that. Yeah.
And it can be really good if it's done right, but it can be really bad and really detrimental if it's done wrong.
Well, that specifically, I don't think I think most people can not do that right when making the most money possible is the goal.
When the bottom line is the bottom line.
Yes. And what a great phrase, because that sums up business and capitalism, period. The bottom line's the bottom line. It's like, sorry.
Yeah.
If it's not working out for you,
Yeah.
plenty of other jobs. But that's the thing, is because everyone wants to, well, not everybody. People that we're drawn to want to foster the type of relationship that's like, hey, this isn't like a business. Like, I care about you as a person. And I think that's great until the personal aspect comes into conflict with the business aspect. And then in most cases, I'm speaking in broad terms here because I don't know exactly your experience, but in most cases, the business owner is going to choose the business over the person.
Yeah.
And then you come into that tension of, I thought we were family.
Mm-hmm. Well, and that, like, it's interesting because I have a couple of friends who are younger than me and are actually still within the same industry that I was in. And I know, like, they reach out to me now for advice on things because I'm just farther along and I've experienced more and I learned a lot. Yep. And I was just hanging out with one of my friends and we were kind of talking about this. And I literally had the thought, I was like, man, I wish people could know this. I wish people could know. You're right. Every company says, like, yes, we're going to be a family, but I wish people could understand that every boss, every owner, every person, every boss, they do not have your best intentions at heart.
Right.
Like, they're there to see what they can get away with.
You're saying a boss is there to see what they can get away with?
Yes. And hear me. Okay. They're there to see what they can get. I mean, an owner for sure, but they're there to see what they can get away with while still trying to help lead and grow you. For instance, and I can talk through my experience too.
Sure. Whatever you want.
I'm going to say, I wish more people knew how to stand up for themselves and how to ask for the things that they need. And my biggest example is, and the burnout, I think, unfortunately, I did it to myself.
Yeah.
And I know that now. I did not know it then, but I know that now because people can make things seem exciting. Like, oh, you are amazing. I did training for a long time. You're an amazing training director. We need someone in marketing, and we know that you are incredible at marketing. And we're wondering if you'd be willing to take that on. It's easy to be like, oh my God, that's such an honor. Like, they see so much potential in me. It's harder and not as well known to be like, that's amazing. I do love marketing. Okay, let's ask some questions. What responsibilities are going to be added onto my plate due to marketing? Okay, if those are being added on, will there be a compensation that comes with that? Or will there be responsibilities taken off of my training portion to help even out some of that workload?
What a great phrase that would be. Yeah.
Or will I have an additional person that will come alongside me or underneath me that will take on some of those responsibilities so I can still oversee those things and do the best that I can. Instead, I was like, what an honor to be able to oversee both of these departments. Like, yeah, I'm passionate. I'm ready to do that. I love this. They kind of fall in line. It's great. I'm going to take on both. Guess what happens faster? Burnout. Because now instead of just doing one person's job, I'm doing two people's jobs for no additional money, no additional support. And I'm expected to make it all happen. And while there is some grace shown by your manager, owner, boss, whatever, because they know that they just gave you a whole nother role that's actually a second person's job, like, you still have the pressure that you put on yourself. And I wish more people would know that. And I know, like I said, bosses are never going to do that because they don't have your best intentions at heart. They're trying to make the most money. The bottom line is the bottom line. They're trying to make the most money they can without having to hire maybe the right amount of people to do the job. And I just wish that's one out of many million things. I could have a whole other podcast about things I wish that I learned or knew when I was working within a corporate world. But
that's the terrible beauty about life, is you don't know it till you know it.
You don't know what you don't know.
Exactly.
And if you don't know what you don't know what to ask.
Yeah.
And I think that is the harder portion of it. And sorry, I know I'm talking a lot, but when you mix in this idea of family into things, it makes it even harder to ask those questions because you're like, man, they really care about me. And they gave me a whole extra, they didn't compensate me more, but they gave me a whole extra week of paid time off.
Yeah.
How great like they really care about me. They want to make sure I have time off. They want to make sure I'm taken care of. But if they wanted to make sure you were taken care of, they wouldn't put on a bunch of extra responsibilities onto your plate without taking some off, or they wouldn't not want to pay you. And my favorite thing that happened to me, so I'm just talking a lot now,
no,
so ask questions, but my favorite thing, and this is when I started to kind of wise up. I knew at this point, but this was really the start, or like, I think the straw that broke the camel's back in my burnout stuff, is I had taken on multiple responsibilities, had asked for raises and was told, okay, well, kind of this idea of prove it and we'll get there. Proved it, still didn't get there. Was to the credit, gifted a large amount of money, which was very kind, but doesn't,
incredible, insane,
and incredible and
amazing.
amazing, but doesn't make up for the amount of work or the way I felt in the rest of the time. But finally got to a place where I was like, it's been a couple of years since I asked for a raise, so I'm going to ask for a raise, and was met with, well, inflation's like a real thing, and so we just can't. And I was like, yeah, inflation's a real thing. Hence like the 5 price increases we've had in the last year. And I see your bottom line. I see your FCR and what you make. And so I'm expected to take on all this responsibility of, and this is all the stuff I did, running the marketing department, overseeing 2 restaurants within that, and both of the marketing directors in that, making sure they were in line, doing the same thing with training, coaching and developing all of the higher leadership within both restaurants, and additional stuff that was never in a job description, but was expected of me and told multiple times to me. Also, peer coaching to the new executives that would join the executive team. Because I was one of the most tenured ones, I was just expected to coach and train them, not alongside the bosses, but instead of.
Yeah.
With no compensation increases or anything like that. So I think that was really the thing for me that broke the camel's back. This is a lot of information. I don't know if any of it is good. You can tell me. It's a lot of information about me.
I think a lot of people can probably connect with pieces of your story for sure. If not, the story is all of it. Yeah.
And it's hard because we talk about family, you talk about burnout. I love these people.
Still do.
My boss, I absolutely love them. And they're still some of my closest friends. And I love them so much. And I have one of those personalities where I really can separate work and life. And I did, and I have. And it's been 1.5 years since I've quit my job anyway.
Yeah.
But like, it's why I say I think that burnout happens when passion meets criticism, or passion meets a lack of encouragement in whatever way that is. Because I was passionate about my job. I loved what I did. I loved coaching and developing people, and I got to do that. And I hope and I feel like I got to make an impact on people's lives. And I loved that, but that wasn't worth the lack of encouragement.
Yeah.
On the other end, which is what made me burn out. Mm-hmm. It wasn't for lack of passion. It wasn't for lack of loving what I did, because I really, really did. I just couldn't. I mean, I came home every day like crying for that last 6 months, 8 months, year.
A long time, whatever it was. I can't put a number on it. It was a long time.
But yeah, burnout sucks. Huh? Don't have it anymore.
Well, so yeah, let's get to that part, because we talked about how to get out of it. You okay? You good?
I was just a lot, and I know that it's a lot. And it's really
like the
heavy.
Vulnerability hangover?
Yeah, it's not that. I think as we talk about burnout and talk about this for people that are listening, like I understand that it's my story, but I also just want it to be helpful. I think that when it comes to, I think burnout is something, as weird as that sounds, that it's like something that I hold very close. Like I know that it's a big deal for people, and it's something that I tried to protect my direct team from a lot. And so I know that it's something that I could talk about forever, but I just want to make sure, I guess, what I'm saying adds value into people's lives and isn't just like, well, she's just talking about her life and all that stuff.
Well, I can guarantee you everything you've said is worth the price of admission to listen to this podcast.
Which is nothing.
So I would not worry about that.
I know.
But what I would like to talk about a little bit, your solution to burnout may be different than most people's opportunity. Most people can't just be like, well, I'm going to quit my job and start my own thing, or whatever that could be. But I'm wondering, are there things that, especially like thinking back to those first few months, like you didn't just come into a thriving business. You're like, I'm great. But you had to build your business and work on it. But were there things that you did that helped kind of either reset or put you back on the right path coming out of burnout and into something more healthy?
Yeah. So, I mean, I can talk about that, but what's probably easier to talk about first is like in the midst of burnout at the job that I had prior to leaving and starting my own business, learning about yourself was important. Yeah. So like Enneagrams is a big part of our life. And if you don't know what an Enneagram is, you should look it up. There are 9 of them that you could potentially be. And I know it seems like a personality test, and it kind of is, but I promise it doesn't put you in a box in the same way that some of them do. It was actually very helpful. So I took an Enneagram test. I'm a 2, which is a helper. Yeah. With what they would call a wing 3. So 3s are achievers. And in work, I tend to be an achiever. Yeah. but I am a helper by nature, which I think both of those together and what I did before probably helped like add to my burnout because I just want to help, but I also want to achieve stuff. But learning that twos as helpers just give and give and give, and that they're unhealthy, they're at their unhealthiest when they don't know how to take care of themselves, forced me to look at myself and be like, okay, like what are the healthy things that I do for myself to pour into myself, to fill that cup back up. I learned very quickly that self-care is something that twos tend to put off because it's like, well, we take care of everyone else. We're going to take care of ourselves last. And so I learned that self-care isn't always like something extravagant. Although I do have some extravagant things that I do. It can be something as simple as treating yourself to a Starbucks or a coffee, getting your nails done. Yeah. Buying yourself that shirt that you really want because you just want it.
Yeah.
Those are all self-care things. And so finding little doses of that to give back to yourself was important. So for me, that really helped with that. Yeah. And the biggest thing I do, which I still do, is I got myself a Burke Williams membership. And I am forced to go at least every other month, because it expires after 2 months, to go and either get a massage or a facial. And that's like been the biggest self-care thing I've done. It's a little bit bougie. I understand not everyone can do that. I get it. But it was a decision that I made, and we budgeted for it. And now it's just a part of my daily monthly routine with my mom. Yeah. But I get to do it with my mom too, which is actually very filling for me as well. Like I always know I have time with my mom, and I always know that I get to have an hour where I'm just relaxing.
So you're talking about two things that I definitely want to talk about as well. One is things that fill you up, and one is the other is self-care. So I want to just throw this in here. My experience in ministry was tricky for a lot of the reasons I explained. Like, if you start to feel burnt out,
work harder. Just kidding.
Well, there's this mentality of like, what could be more important than saving souls for the kingdom of God from eternal damnation and fire? Yeah. So it's like,
plus you don't make a ton of money to be able to do stuff because they pay you just enough to have you have a good life, but just enough to keep you there.
Not that high.
No, but just enough to make sure you can pay your bills.
Yes.
But not enough that like you can leave. You know what I mean? Like you're like,
I know so many people that were in upper level leadership at a church of thousands that still had to live with a parent, and their parent paid rent because like you can't live out here on a church salary. Yep. And that's just one example of so many people. So many people have subsidized housing from people who go to the church and they're like, I can help. It's only half the rent or whatever. Everybody's getting helped. We have help because we own the unit, the place that we live, so we don't have to pay as much as we normally would. Like everybody needs help. But in ministry, when you are met with like, it's truly life or death. At least that's what
they teach you.
You're like, well, okay, so I'm feeling, you can't even identify it as burnout yet, but I'm feeling crappy, or I'm not myself, or I feel tired or exhausted, or I'm having heart palpitations or.
Well, yeah. And for those of you that don't or have never been involved in a church and never worked at a church, both of us have, like, you probably don't know. I'm just going to say this and when you can go back into it. But like, it's not just like a 9-to-5 job that you go into every day. You work 9 to 5, like your normal hours, because you got to play and stuff and do stuff. But you're also there on the weekends for all of the services on Saturday night and then the services on Sunday morning. And guess what? You also, if you're in the youth department or anything else, you have a youth service that happens midweek, and you're required to be in a life group on another day that you go to and are a part of, and maybe even required to lead a life group. So now instead of working a 9 to 5, it's not just 9 to 5, it's 9 to 5 and this and that. So it truly is your whole life. And guess what? You're not getting paid for all of that time. Most people are on salary.
Yeah, I was. And we were it was told to us, we're expected to do 50 to 55 hours per week. And the church paid for gave us a stipend for our cell phones and told us that, or at least my boss told me, I don't know if this was an organizational thing, it's the expectation that you're always reachable.
Well, that's what salary is, but that's not, anyway, someone always loses.
Totally. So going back to this, that's my ministry experience of like, suck it up because there's something more important here. I think more people can probably relate to something similar to that in their own life that's not ministry, whether it's like you're responsible for the income for your family, or you've got a sick parent or kids that depend on you, and it's like, I can't take time for me because all of these people need something, and if I don't do it, it's not going to get done. And if that is your belief or the feeling that you have, one of the things that was so hard for me to come to terms with is self-care feels selfish.
Yeah.
But it's inherent. I understand that if you boil it down to that, it would be, because it's all about you. It's about taking care of you.
Yeah.
What about all the other people you're supposed to take care of? Look, they should be taking care of themselves.
Yeah.
But
Unless it's your kid.
yeah, I mean, there's so many exceptions to that rule. So don't clip that out. But self-care isn't selfish. It's honestly selfless, particularly for the people who are expected to pour out and give to people, because you can't give what you don't have. If you desperately wanted to give me $20, but you didn't have $20, tough. You can't do it. If you want to give someone your time, effort, and energy, but you don't have that to give, tough. You can't do it. So if you push yourself to that point where you are emotionally, physically run into the ground, you can't even do what you want to do or what you're expected to do in a way that's going to be helpful or useful for those people that you're loving, serving, taking care of. So self-care in that sense is selfless. For you, it's taking care of you, and that should be enough. But if that's not enough for you, you can't give what you don't have. If you want to pour out a cup of water for somebody, but there's no water left in your cup, you can't do it.
Yep.
Which takes me to my next understanding. We read through this book called Leading on Empty. I think Wayne Cordero wrote it. It's a lot about burnout and his experience. But one of the illustrations that always stuck with me is imagining that your life is like a glass of water. And people pour into it and things pour into it, and then you pour out and you give to people and all that kind of stuff. So it needs to be constant. It needs to be happening. If you're just pouring out and pouring out and pouring out, then you have nothing left to give. You've got nothing. My experience was that my life is that cup. Yeah. My cup will constantly have a hole in it somewhere. It might be at the top, so it's not so bad. Like it leaked, the water leaked out even if I wasn't pouring it, but I'm still at 80%. Some seasons I got a hole right at the bottom, and it's I have to be intentional with pouring into myself and take care of myself, because I'm, for whatever reason, just in such a depleted season that I have to do that. Yeah. So I don't know where the hole that is in your cup is, but it's probably there, and
right at the bottom.
Right at the bottom. But that's why I think it's important, at least in my life. Let me back up here, because that sounded like too many disclaimers. I suck at this is the reality. You have to figure out the things
it's true,
that take care of you. You have to figure out what it looks like to pour into yourself. You've done that really well, and you described a whole bunch of ways that you do that.
It took a long time to figure that out, because I had to also give myself permission that it was okay. Yeah. And unfortunately, not everything costs money. Like baths, which some people would hate, are total self-care for me. Yeah. Where I just can sit in a bath and watch something, and it's just me. No one's bugging me. No one's coming in. It's just me. Yeah. And that's a way of self-care too. But you have to give yourself permission to be able to do that. You have a hard time giving yourself permission to just sit still or not monetize anything. Yeah.
And it's the way I'm wired. She talked about Enneagrams. I'm a 3. It's an achiever. I'm only feeling as good about myself as what I'm able to achieve. I think it's part of my wiring. I think it's part of my ministry experience growing up. I think all of it culminates in me only feeling okay if I'm producing something, which I'm working through. Taking it back a little bit, finding those things that do fill up your cup, so to speak, is so important. I do struggle with that. I couldn't even tell you what I like to do. Well, I don't have a hobby, but I'm working on that and figuring it out. Watching competitive Rocket League tournaments.
It's great.
Huge for me. And even that's been difficult to allow myself to do. But if you're in a situation where you're wired kind of like me, or you just have a lot of expectations and you never take time for yourself, and if someone's like, what do you do for fun? You don't have an answer. One of the things that I would encourage you to do is, at the end of a day, think about this before the day, that at the end of the day, you're going to write down all the stuff that you did that day. I got up early so I could work out. Maybe that's for you. I took my kids to school. It took an hour. I packed them lunches or whatever. I went to work. List all those things out, and then make 2 categories: things that I did for myself and things that I did for others. I will tell you right now, most of us, the things we did for others will be a lot longer of a list than the things you do for yourself. And at least seeing that will give you a visual understanding and representation that maybe something is out of balance. Go ahead.
Yes, I was going to say, I think that's a great idea. Something that really helped you is what we started to do is that there's this, it's really popular now, but there's a thing called a 5-minute journal.
Yes, these are awesome.
Written by Alex and Mimi Santaconi. I don't remember, but they're great. They're cute. Well, they're no longer a couple anymore, but they're very cute.
They're
Their
not?
kids, they're cute. No, they amicably split.
They manifested amicably splitting.
Yeah, but they did. But they wrote this. It's a 5-minute journal, and you do the same thing. You wake up every day and say, what am I looking forward to today? At the end of the day, you say, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for?
It's like a
And what are
gratitude
three
journal.
things? Yeah. But I think that really helped you. There was a season you did that like every day. You were very adamant about doing it. And I think it really helped you.
Yeah, it did.
You haven't done it recently, but you do
Yeah.
have it. It's at home.
Well, but for me, that helped a lot with my anxiety
Yeah.
and focused my mind on things that are good and I'm grateful for, and being able to write down at the end of the day, here's 3 awesome things that happened. Okay, like today was successful. And
Yeah.
that's what I needed in that time, was to see that I was successful in certain ways that weren't just, was
Yeah.
I on TV today or whatever?
Yeah.
You
It's
know?
like, what did I do for other people or for myself? Yeah.
And so to finish the thought on both sides of the like things you do for you and things you do for yourself, if you find that it's way out of whack, I know that most of us don't have the opportunity to take some of those things off the list of things that we do for other people because they're dependent on us.
Yeah.
But finding ways to carve out time to do the things that do fill you up, I think is one of the most important ways that you can start to recover from burnout. There's one thing, and we'll talk about this on another working through it later. I don't have it right in front of me, but I watched this awesome video of this woman who put together, she called it a menu, like a menu of things that fill her up.
That's great.
But the menu is split up into different stuff. There's snacks. Scrolling on social media is a snack. If it's your only form of self-care, you're probably not getting the nutrients you need.
Yeah.
Things that were entrees or things that you're passionate about and you love. Maybe it's playing music. Maybe it's going hiking. Maybe it's art. I don't know what it is for you, but those things that actually take you away from your phone.
Legos.
Could be Legos. Yeah.
That's mine.
I would also put like television in the snack category too.
Yeah.
Or later on, she goes on to have like a dessert category too. Could fall in there. But breaking it down into things where it's like, is this something I'm doing because it numbs the pain and or the whatever, which could be doom scrolling, could be alcohol, could be junk food, those things that like, at least it'll make me feel good in the moment because I don't know how to feel good overall. Things that are entrees could also be stuff like exercising. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So developing that menu, that just reminded me, I do have something that I can show you if you want to add something to what I'm saying as I pull it up.
Well, you were talking about that. I'd love to get into at some point in time. You talked about your burnout earlier of like, obviously my burnout was very work related, feeling, for lack of a better word, a little bit manipulated into stuff and not cared for,
Sure.
feeling like, while I was replaceable, I also was irreplaceable in ways. It's a very weird mix of feelings.
Yeah, juxtaposition.
Yeah, to be in. But your burnout recently hasn't been anything like that. It's truly just been over, I would say, not being able to find any joy in what you're doing.
Yeah.
But knowing that it's one of the things that pays the bills.
Yeah.
As for lack of a better way to say that. And I'd love to dive into that a little bit of like, and I don't even know that you've figured out yet what that burnout looks like other than moving away from the thing that is making you feel that way. But like, it'd be interesting as soon as you're done finding that thing to talk about, how do you deal with that when it's the thing that you still have to be in
terms of like a job?
Well, yeah, because for you, it's having to be on the road so much and having to truly DJ some of these parties that you're like, that's not really what I'm passionate about anymore. I'm like wanting to host and I'm doing hosting, but I'm also doing DJing and it's confusing and it's not quite who I am anymore, but I know I need to still do it because like, that's where a lot of, well, at least last year, it's a lot of where your gigs came from, especially coming off of COVID. And for those of you that aren't gig workers, like if you're a gig worker, especially after COVID, like you take the gig when the gig comes. Like there is no if and or buts because your no is somebody else's yes, and they're never going to come back to you if you say no. And so you take whatever you can because you obviously want to make them as much money as you can. So just curious for you, like as you were doing some of that stuff, did you ever figure out like what was the thing that kept you going other than being like, it's what pays the bills?
I mean, honestly, that's a big part of it is knowing that you can't stop doing something without having something else that you can do to supplement whatever it is that you're doing, whether that be the income that you get or the I don't know, if work's not burning you out, but it's family obligations that's burning you out. You can't just drop the ball on something and leave people hanging or leave yourself hanging. You know what I mean? I'm going to put this down because I couldn't find it. For me, I do feel like I had the luxury, since I do a lot of different things in the entertainment space, I did have the luxury to pull back on certain things and say no to certain things, which I think gave me more physical and emotional margin in my life. I know that in the season that I'm coming out of, flying as much as I did was really taking a toll on me physically. So pulling back on those things too. I guess really the answer is finding and specifically pinpointing the things that are causing that tension and friction and burnout in your life is the first step in making those changes. If you are like, I'm just so burnt out from my job, what's going on? It's just like every day, gotta go in there and work. It's like you're not going to get the results you need if you haven't boiled it down to what's really bothering you.
Yeah. And nobody wants to work, guys.
Yeah.
You just have to find the thing that you're passionate about. And this is the manager in me that goes, it's not good enough to just be like, I have burnt out.
That's a below the line excuse.
It's a below the line excuse. But I mean that though. Like you can get burnt out in anything that you do. You can get burnt out in being a mom, burnt out in working, you can get burnt out from traveling, you get burnt out from anything. But it is important to boil it down. Like, what is it? It's why it took me 1.5 years to leave. Cause I was like, maybe I'll get over it, and sure. I hate what I'm doing. Maybe I'll find joy. And you know what? I did still find some joy in what I did. But not enough to keep me there.
Yeah.
And I realized in my burnout that I knew what needed to change. I knew I wasn't the one who was holding the cards to that change. And I knew through conversations and through asking for things that the people holding the cards were never going to give me the changes that I needed in order to not feel burnt out.
I mean, that's true of life. Like, you're the one who's responsible for your own happiness.
Yes. And I also realized that I dug my own hole by choosing to not be informed and choosing to be excited about things prior to getting here. And by choosing to not say stuff. You know what I mean? And I think also you could describe burnout burnout as that too, is that burnout happens or is when an agreed upon set of expectations begins to not be met by one side.
Sure.
And so you're holding up your end of the bargain of the expectations that were asked of you, but the other party is saying, yeah, but I know I said I'd always take care of you. Yeah, but inflation. Or you know what? Yeah, I know I said we would hire more people to do this, but we really needed this instead. So we'll get to that eventually.
Yeah.
And that's all work related, obviously, but.
Well, I mean, work related for you, but relationally connected for other people too. Like, well, when we decided to get together, this is what we agreed on. Mm-hmm. And you're doing the opposite or you're not doing that. Definitely. It can come out in a lot of different ways. You asked me about how I handled my burnout and that kind of stuff. And I wanted to continue on. Sorry, let me get back there with how I made those changes. Mm-hmm. And did I lose it forever? No, it was pinpointing. We started talking about pinpointing things. Yeah. You mentioned pinpointing things that bring you joy too. I think that's good. I think you can find things that bring you joy in your work. I think it can be tricky. Simon Sinek talks about finding your why. It's a
great one.
But not everybody has their why attached to their job. Like the why I work is to make money. And that's totally reasonable. But
the why and the how and the what.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's the thing. I guess if I could try to put a bow on some of this stuff.
And that's not why you do what you do. The what you do is you do stuff so you can make money. The how you do it is you DJ. The why you do it is you do it for Brooklyn and I and for our life and for our future.
That's true.
It's so your why is not to make money. That's normally what like the what is. What am I doing? I'm making money so I can live my life. But how am I doing that? And then why?
Right.
And I know you have more stuff to say, but sure. I would highly encourage people to do that though, because that did help me in my burnout within my job is to do that whole thing of my what's my why. And it's not just starting with your why, because most of the time your why is not your why. You really got to dig in to find it.
It's a great point.
Yeah.
You I almost said called me out, phrase I hate. You pointed out to me that I confuse my why with my what, or not mine, but in the illustration, the why isn't to make money. That's the what.
Yeah.
The why is to take care of your family or to pay your bills or whatever it is. You can change what you do. And I know you might be listening to this and like, I can't. It's like, well, given time, effort, and energy, you can. Like, no matter what, you can figure out a way to change your career, change your place in your space. And I think, boy, I guess that's kind of what this boils down to, is if you need to get, If you need someone to give you permission to take control of your life, this is it. Whether you're dealing with burnout, anxiety and depression, dissatisfaction, despair, help isn't coming. But you are the author of your own destiny, as cliche as that is. If you hate who you're with, it's hard to change that, but not that hard to change that. It's not that hard to change that, even though it'll be hard to go through it. But you got to go through it if you want to get through it. If you hate your job, it's not easy to find another job, but it's probably easier than staying at the place that's killing you and you're miserable. Like, there's work that has to happen. And I would encourage you, if I know this is a little bit tangential to the burnout discussion, but it's all kind of the same thing. If you hate what you're doing, if it's burning you out and stealing you, robbing you of your joy, but you spend your hours at home when you're not working, watching TV and scrolling, I'm telling you, those are the hours to put in the time to figure out what you want to do, to build the thing that you want to do, to search for the thing you want to do. Most of us have the time to look and to find it. It's finding the motivation when you feel burnt out to continue pushing forward in the hopes and the knowledge that things can and will get better, even when you don't believe that they can, because they will and they can, if you're willing to try to figure out how to change your situation.
Can I add into that too? Because I was hearing you. You're like, no.
I didn't, because I didn't want to kill the mood.
No, but this is a cliche thing to say, but I was hearing you talk and I was like, yeah, I could hear people, I could see people being like, yeah, I'm burnt out, so I'm going to leave, I'm going to go here. And guess what? I got burnt out here, so I'm going to leave and I'm going to go here or whatever. Yeah. Whether that be relationships, work, it doesn't matter. It's cliche to say, be the change you want to see in the world. I feel like as I get older, I understand that more. Like, I can only put it in terms of me, right?
Sure.
Like, I was burnt out at my job because of the way that my bosses treated me.
Yeah.
And I could have left and gone somewhere else. And guess what?
You made the choice to stay.
No, but I could have left and gone somewhere else, and I probably would have had the same problem.
Yeah.
But what I did differently is I read a bunch of books. I listened to lots of, like, Simon Sinek. He's amazing. You should listen to him. He's great. But I learned I learned to be the manager and boss I wanted to see. I wanted someone to be for me. And it made
so beautiful in life, love, labor, your job, your romantic relationships, your friendships.
Yep.
It's about being the person you want to attract. Oh my God, Kelly, you have to listen to this.
I will listen to it, but I just want to finish this thought. But like, you're saying, do the work, figure out what you want to do. But I would say do the work to figure out what you need someone to be to you. Because guess what? If all you're ever having is that burnout from being a manager or from your manager, whatever, or I'm just putting in terms of me. If I'm burnt out from the type of manager that I have, guess what type of manager I'm going to be?
Yep.
It's whatever they do to me, unless I make a change and be different. And I will say I'm still good friends with a lot of the direct people that I oversaw.
Yeah.
And they still tell me, like, you're one of the best bosses I ever had. That only happened though because I decided to make a change and decided to say, hey, I'm burnt out and I don't want these people to feel that way. And so I'm going to change up the way that I lead. And and when we say family, like, I mean it. Like, I know when your final schedule, they were all in college. I know when your final schedule is. I know when your birthday is. I know what vacations you're going on this year. I know if you're dating someone or not. And guess what? I'm pushing you. Sometimes I was the one that was like, hey, when was the last day off you? Or like, when was the last time you took a couple of days off? Okay, I want you to plan for that next month.
Yep.
And no one ever did that for me, but I wanted someone to do that for me. So I made that change.
Yep.
And their life was better for it.
Yep. And you are such a rare leader in that sense.
Thank you.
I
wish people would be that way, because I do think that we could change the world and make burnout be less of a thing if people actually cared and like said the things that they did, held up their side of the expectations.
Yeah. I want to put a kind of a bow on this with a few things that have stood out to me. I keep like quotes and stuff in my phone as I read. I'll like jot them down and stuff. So in terms of what Kelly is talking about, here's a few that have been some of my favorite with this. First, if you spend your time chasing butterflies, they'll fly away. But if you spend your time making a beautiful garden, the butterflies will come. Don't chase, attract.
That's good.
To attract better, you have to become better. You can't keep doing the same things and expect change. Transform your mindset. If you want something, you have to become it first. If you want love, love yourself first. If you want to be valued, value yourself first. If you want to be taken care of, take care of yourself first. Become the energy you want to attract. And to kind of sum up the last two thoughts that I have, first is this: the healer also needs healing. The planner also needs surprises. The giver needs to receive. The thoughtful also needs to be thought of. The considerate also needs to be considered. So the last thing I would say, nothing changes if nothing changes.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the key, is that so many of us are waiting for something to happen to make it better.
Yeah.
Once I find that person, then I'll be happy.
Yeah.
Once I get a different job than this one, then I'll be happy. Seek out, become that person that you want to attract.
Yeah.
Go out and find that job that you think is going to make you happy. But if you don't,
yeah,
you're just going to live in it, because nothing changes if nothing changes.
That's true.
This has been a wild and not all over the place, but I feel like we've hit so many different things. And I hope that everyone who's listening and watching has gotten something, a little nugget of wisdom, as we would have said years ago, from what we're talking about. But if you're dealing with burnout, hey, know that we love you. Know that sometimes it's hard to make a change, but if you're miserable, there's only one way, and it's up.
Yeah.
Kel, what are we talking about next week?
You know, we didn't decide on that. That's what I was looking at right now.
That's good, because I can tell you what it is.
What is it?
Should I quit my 9-to-5 job?
I was going to say, is that what you want it to be?
So next week.
So now that we've talked about burnout, the question is, should I quit my 9-to-5?
Should I quit my 9-to-5 job? This is going to be an interesting one. We haven't heard each other's thoughts on it. You did quit your 9-to-5.
I did.
I suppose I did as well years ago, but I would say circumstantially very different. But if you've ever thought like, should I keep doing what I'm doing? Whether you're working in food, whether you're watching children as a babysitter, whether you're a teacher, an artist, whatever it is, should you quit your 9-to-5?
Let's talk about it next week.
No, we're going to give you the answer by
Next
talking
week.
about it next week. Until then, be safe, be well. Know that we appreciate you being on this journey with us, because for us, honestly, we just feel like it's a journey too. We're talking about our experiences and hoping that not only can we continue to grow and change by talking about it together rather than keeping it into ourselves, but that also maybe you can walk away with some things that help you and impact you in a positive way. So until next time.
I love you.
And I love you. We'll see you on the next show on Hardly Working. Bye.
Bye.